Hello and welcome. Today's video's a somber topic, but a critically important one. The question that's been asked is stress killing our teenagers? And we're going to deal with that heavy topic in today's video. Heavy topic here. There are some things we really do need to talk about, though, and one is this drive for perfectionism that can really add tremendous amount of stress to some teenagers. The second is self-medication and the increasing rates of drug overdoses that we see. Yes, social media. Once again, we'll talk about that role in mental health of teens, and then what sort of signals might we need to be paying attention to that maybe we're missing. All those things we'll be talking about in this video. As parents, as educators, as people involved with teenagers, we want teenagers to be striving to be their best. That's a trait that is good. Don't settle for second best. That sort of idea is something we want to instill in youth. That's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. What's different between that and perfectionism, and this is according to Dr. Renee Brown, author of the Atlas of the Heart. Perfectionism goes beyond this and is actually protection against the feelings of shame and inadequacy. So it's actually rooted in some really low self-image and the stress that comes about from all of that. So to cover that up, they are driving themselves to be perfect. That's really what perfectionism is, and that is significantly different than this idea of just trying to be at your best and just keep working on getting better. Completely different mindsets, all right? And we got to understand the root cause of that. People who are experiencing perfectionism are more inclined to try suicide. The suicide risk increases, anxiety and depression increases. So we want to be really kind of looking for that difference between just being driven from a good positive sense versus trying to cover up this idea of shame and lack of self-worth and all of that. When you don't feel right, you want to try to ease that inner pain. What do? You begin to try to find ways to ease it. And very often, drugs and alcohol are the way people try to self-medicate. It very often begins with alcohol and then can move on to other drugs. And yes, there has been some debate about gateway drugs and what is a gateway drug and what isn't. And I don't want to get into that because really the point being is when people begin to go down that road, it can lead to a lot of bad things. 50% of teenagers have taken medicine that's not prescribed for them. 50%. We've all been hearing in the news about the fentanyl crisis and the overdoses that happen because of it. I have mentioned this in another video, but I had the privilege, actually, of interviewing a relatively young man who's now become a successful entrepreneur, but he spent years in prison, overdosed 12 different times, got into some really hardcore drugs. The last time he went to prison, his goal was actually to become a better criminal. He turned his life around, but the core of this began when he was a teenager, began in a culture of family life that was not positive at all. And it was an escape. It was trying to fit in. It was trying to cover up what's going on inside, the feelings of inadequacy and all of those things that were going inside. And it led down a very dark path for this young man who was, in his case, 12 different times had died and resuscitated. So he actually became a lucky one and was able to turn his life around. But at the core, it was self-medication that kind of went down this dark path. All right, we got to bring this up one more time. It's really becoming a recurring theme in a lot of these videos of mental health, and that is social media. And the real danger of social media, especially again with young women, with teenage girls, is this idea of social comparison. It does impact males, but it seems to be more pernicious with young females. And when you are constantly looking at these perfect stories and images and stuff that other people are putting up and oftentimes doctoring and embellishing, you begin to say negative things about yourself. You begin to see yourself in negative light. There is increases in anxiety and depression as social media use goes up. So we need to really become aware of that. This is a serious situation. As teenage mental health declines because of constant comparison and beginning to feel poor self-worth because of how they are feeling inside, again, it's typically comparing themselves to some image they're creating in their mind that they're seeing from social media. Then they create this comparison in their mind. It gets blown out of proportion. They make these generalizations, all these things that are going on internally that cause them to feel worse and worse about themselves. And then the more that escalates and the more that builds inside, the more likely they are to go down that path of self-medication or even the thought of taking their own life. So it's a serious concern and one we definitely need to be aware of and talk about. When some statistics show that 50% of teenagers have some sort of mental health disorder during their teen years, it behooves us to pay attention to what some of the signals are so that we can get intervention and help them out before it becomes a real crisis. So what are some of these signs? What are some of these signals? Well, there's things such as drop in performance, whether that's academically or athletically or performing arts or music or whatever it is. If you begin to see a steady and even sometimes significant decline in how they are performing, that's definitely a warning sign, something to be paying attention to. Withdrawal from peer groups, beginning to show a lack of interest in things that they used to be interested in, sleeping more, change in eating habits, sleeping less. All of these things could be signals that something else more serious is going on. When we begin to see changes in behavior, changes from the norm that go on for more than a couple weeks, as parents, we should begin asking some questions. We're trying to find out what's going on. Now, any of you who are parents of teenagers know that nothing, I'm fine, right? Those are the typical kind of responses that you're going to get. And sometimes we got to start asking more point blank and tougher questions with our teenagers and really try to push that envelope a little to get the answers that we need to find out whether this is something that we really need to make a professional intervention in, get somebody some help there to deal with our teenager. But those are some of the most common warning signs that we need to be looking for in those changes of behavior in those areas. We come to the end of another video. This one is a very important topic. It's not an easy one necessarily for us adults to kind of approach and broach, especially with our teenagers, but it's really important. So I hope you take something from this and can help with others. I encourage you to subscribe to our channel, check out our other videos, but I also would like to encourage you to register for a free webinar, how to enhance your child's performance in athletics, the arts, academics, and life. And in that, there's actually some about how you as a parent can help through your own language interrupt negative patterns of thinking to help begin to maybe break your child out of a cycle of negativity or worse. So I would register for that, check that webinar out today, and I hope to see you back in another video.